Hey, Chris Johnson here with CPA Diversity. Glad to have you watching the video. This is a CPA Talk Series interview with my man, Patrick Pierre. Few words to say about Patrick in this discussion. Patrick is just a fun guy to talk to. I learned a lot just having our discussion about the discipline and strategy and resilience that you need to have when studying for the exam and taking the exam and passing the exam. Patrick is just, very strategic. He's very smart. He's got a lot of enthusiasm, which is one of the great things about talking to him. He's just got great energy. And I know that is going to be something that resonates with you as you watch this video. And Patrick has got a passion for tutoring other people how to pass the exam. So definitely a fun person to have a discussion with about being a CPA. And I want to present this discussion to you. So make sure you like the video. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe to CPA Diversity so that you know when we release a new video. And if you really, really like it, which I know you will, make sure you share it with people that you know are trying to pass and study for the CPA exam. We want to help as many people as possible. So without any further delay, Patrick Pierre, CPA Talk Series interview. I passed the CPA exam, coming right at you. All right, hello everyone. Chris Johnson here, back with another CPA Talk series. Today I have a special guest. This is going to be a different one because we're going to talk to someone who has recently gone through the CPA exam and passed and got their license. Kind of a freshly minted CPA by the name of Mr. Patrick Pierre. Patrick, welcome to CPA Diversity. Glad to have you here to talk today.
I'm excited to be here, and I couldn't say it any better myself.
Patrick and I, for the audience, Patrick and I have recently just met, like I have with a lot of people that I've done discussions with. And he was telling me how he had just got his license, how he liked CPA Diversity and things that we were doing. And I asked him if I could have the opportunity to hear his story and share it. And we started talking, and it was such a good story. And I just was like, come on, speak to the audience, man. So that's why I'm glad to have you here, and let's jump right into it. So tell me why accounting? Why did you decide this career path for yourself?
My goodness, I can tell you the actual, the moment that really signified for me in regards to like why I wanted to be an accountant. I got my AA degree at Hillsborough Community College, and I was taking my first university course. I was in the business major, and I took my first financial accounting class. And what a difference, right? Community college, small classroom setting. Mm-hmm. I'm in this huge auditorium, I want to say about 400 students. And I just remember the professor saying, okay, at the start, it's going to be 400 of you. Halfway through, it's going to be about half of you. And then at that point, I want to say maybe 20% get B and C's and maybe 3 to 40% get A's. And when I heard that, it resonated with me. I was like, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
I think at that point, once I accepted that challenge, I just never looked back. And accounting kind of solidified for me after taking that course. And I did get an A in that first financial accounting class.
Well, that's good, right? It's so funny you're saying that because you're taking me back to when I was in school too. I feel like I had a professor that said something similar to that. Most of you are not going to be here. And I remember, man, my financial accounting, my first professor, he was a hard dude. He was like a stern lecturer, you know what I mean? And what happened with me was he asked me a question. He would go up and down the hall and he would like lecture, and then he stopped and then he point to somebody to have them respond and answer the question. And I remember he did that to me one too many times, and I didn't know the answer, and I was like, I'm never gonna not know the answer again, And then like I really started studying and doing well in his course, and then so I got the bug too for accounting. But what was like the background? I get that you liked the course, but was there any other specific reason that you were like, I'm gonna go into accounting?
Okay, yes, there was a more specific reason, but that, as I discussed earlier, that was the moment where I realized, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. But
Right.
actually, I wanted to be a lawyer, and it's just so funny how, as I recall this story, like I just can't believe like I just took a leap of faith. And so essentially, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to go to the university and get a political science degree. And as I was getting my AA, there's one particular course I was studying for at the public library, was Spanish 2. So I'm studying for this examination, and this guy just walks up to me and he's like, "Hey, can you help me with something?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Sure, no problem." And unbeknownst to me, this guy was an attorney. And so we start getting into a conversation, random stranger, never met him before in my life. And he's like, "So what are you studying? And how's it going? Have you prepared for the LSAT?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm just trying to focus on my Spanish 2 exam." And
Right.
he's like, "You know something? I have a history political science degree." And he's like, if you're not set on possibly not getting a law degree and you want something to fall back on, that might not be the best degree. And he also said to really prepare you to be analytical for the
Mhm.
LSAT exam, he's like, I really think accounting will help you, and it gives you something to fall back into. And so
Okay.
I'm like, okay, cool, okay. He obviously has experience. He's giving me word of wisdom,
Right.
and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna roll with it. And
Okay.
so I at the university level, instead of doing political science and history, I did business. And as I alluded to earlier, I realized, okay, I am going to go ahead and do this accounting after that first glimpse of it with my financial accounting course. So that's
Okay.
a
Okay.
little background in
So
regards to
so
that.
then so he kind of planted the seed. Then you
Yes,
went into the course and you're like, I like this. This is good. I can do this.
that's
So
correct.
that's interesting, man, because did you do you are you still pursuing law, or are you just now accounting now?
No, it was just one of those things where I it just happened. I took a leap of faith.
Right.
I wanted to be a lawyer, but and I knew that those particular degrees would kind of, help me, just,
Get there. Yeah.
yeah, those subject matters would kind of help me solidify what I wanted to do with law. And yeah, it just, the tide turned.
Okay.
And I took
Okay.
that first accounting course and I just never looked back.
That's good. That's good. That's a
Yeah.
good way of getting into it. I know, because I know you can also balance accounting with being a lawyer too. There are a lot of people
Right.
doing that. So I didn't know if that was something you were planning on doing or you had done. But yeah. But okay. So then from going into accounting and starting to go through the courses, how did you learn about what a CPA was, and how did you make the decision? When did you come to the decision that you were going to pursue a CPA license?
Well, growing up in my childhood, sports was a huge thing for me. You know, I played basketball in high school. I was an avid football watcher, just sports in general, just the whole mantra of sports. And so for me, I looked at the CPA examination like a championship. It's the pinnacle. It's the top of the profession, and I want to get that championship. And
Mhm.
so that's essentially what I saw in the CPA exam. I just wanted to be recognized by my peers of getting that particular championship and
Right,
just
right.
saying I'm the top of my profession. I've got it, and then it's going on, moving on to the next challenge.
Got it.
So that was my primary reason for why I wanted to be a CPA, because I wanted to be at the top.
You knew that was like the mark, the stamp to
That was
say,
the one.
I am classified as one of the premier, I guess, accountants, right? Like you've done what you've done to show, to demonstrate that you know this subject matter and the profession.
That's correct.
Okay, so then here's the fun part. What happened, your study process? Tell me about the study process.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's a little bit different than how you study in college, first and foremost. Um, I'm not the best exam taker. So what I learned throughout the process is that I really had to essentially audit my time. I had to take the test seriously, and I had to discipline myself and come up with a strategy that was conducive for my lifestyle.
Mhm.
And I really focused on the quality of what I was learning, not the quantity. And so I just really honed in regards to the different topic areas that are essentially in the AICPA blueprint. So I
Right.
just really had that self-assessment. I said, okay, do I know this topic? Yes or no? And if I don't, let me go in and let me dive a little bit deep into that topic to really become proficient enough where when it comes to the examination day, we're already anxious, we have anxiety, but to kind of channel that in a way where it's conducive within that 4 hour allotment time per examination. So I think for me, it was just being self-aware of what my strengths and weaknesses were. And kind of dial back a little bit, kind of like the fork of the road. I had to make a decision. Like, did I want the Elijah Watt Award, or did I just want to become a CPA? And for me, I realized because of the responsibilities and things that I had to work with as I was studying, I was like, okay, the Elijah White Award might be out of the window, but I know if I study hard enough, I can pass these exams.
Right.
And that's essentially what my goal was. And so again, I focused on the quality, and I audited my time, and I just stayed disciplined. I stayed the course.
So
and I had support. I had support as well.
Yeah, like what, your family behind you saying, "Hey, go ahead and get it."
Absolutely, because they knew that was my championship.
Right.
Regardless if I stumbled or I failed or something didn't go my way, it's like go back to the drawing board. Figure it out. We're gonna support you. And so I was just very, very fortunate. I just had everyone rallying around me.
That's good, man. Family is important, man. I had support as well when I was going through the study process because it's a commitment, it's a commitment. I was gonna say, so when you say you're auditing you audited your time, so meaning like you knew where to focus your study hours. Like if there was something you knew quicker, you were like, okay, I know this, but this is something that I'm having challenge with, so I'm gonna spend that time, make sure I spend the time focusing on all those topics.
100%. Again, I didn't take this test as seriously when I first began. I wasn't disciplined, and so, for example, I love to work out. I love sports. I like my free time. Mm-hmm. And essentially, I just had to dial back. Like I enjoy working out 6 days a week. I had to dial that back to 2 days a week. Mm-hmm. If I was watching, sports, every other day, I'll probably just, I ended up watching the recaps on YouTube. I didn't watch the games anymore. I just watched 10-minute YouTube recaps on the games.
Yeah.
And so just saying, hey, I'm going to say no to these things for a short period of time for the upside.
Yes.
Long-term gains.
Yes.
And so just being self-aware and auditing my time and realizing that I'm more conducive to learning in the morning. So I was a morning warrior. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I studied from like 5 to 8 a.m. And that 3 hours was equivalent to me studying 10 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that's good that you said that, because I was going to ask, what times did you study? Like, because some people can study after, like maybe they have to work during the morning, so then they study in the evening or late at night. But I was myself too. I would study in the morning. But were you working when you studied, or were you just studying? You were working too.
I was working. Yeah, I was actually switching jobs.
Yeah,
my wife was in grad school and I was caring for children. So and that's why I mentioned earlier, like I had to decide, okay, did I want to get the Elijah Award because that's going to require like me to study all times of the day, or did I just want to be proficient enough and understand the concepts and pass the examination and prove that I'm competent and then I got to the top of my profession with that.
Right. But you were still, so you kind of set the bar and say, hey, if I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna take this exam, I'm gonna try to go for the highest award. It's like what do they call it? Aim for the moon and hit the stars type of deal.
Correct.
Got it. I mean, that's a good approach for sure. That's a good approach. I mean, you should take that approach in everything, right?
Correct.
Good. So then you studied in the morning. You did roughly 3 hours in the morning, and then.
Correct. Yeah. I'll peel the onion on that a little bit. So like essentially the way I did it is like I use multiple review courses, but essentially I kind of give you a framework. Mm-hmm. So like for example, let's say any prep course that you have, let's say it has for example 10 modules, right? Mm-hmm. So the way I would do it is I would read all the modules, for example, week 1. I would read everything because there's nothing outside of the fact of just reading the material and comprehending and developing your outline. So I'm a stickler for just reading the concepts, creating your own outline, putting it into your own words. Mm-hmm. So I would read all the material week 1, and then essentially as I go through week, for example, 2 through 3, after reading, I know what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I really want to harp on that. You have to be self-aware. You got to know what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Right.
And so essentially going into week 2 and 3, I would study, for example, multiple choice questions for modules 1 through 5. And then in the evening time, I would review my outline. So essentially during that whole duration as I was studying, I was kind of doing like a cram course where multiple choice questions in the morning and then reviewing my outline of what I created the prior week when I read the material. And so that's kind of what I did, back and forth.
That's good though. That's good though. What I like what you said is, it's all about reading the material and then comprehending it. So what you did was you read it and then you try to understand and then put it into your own words, right?
That's correct.
And so I did an interview with Jessica McLean, and we were talking about studying. One thing she said was, you have to figure out the best way of how you study, right? Some
Correct.
like she needed, I forgot what she said, but some people need to write it down. She said she needs to be a writer. She has to write it down in order to process it. And what you're saying, it sounds like you've done something similar to that, right? You basically said, I read it, but instead of just reading it, I'm like putting it in my own words so that way I know I'm comprehending what I'm reading.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And not just reading it, but also creating my own outline because, again, this exam is within 4 hours and there's a lot of topics that are being discussed. So by creating your own outline and developing your own mnemonics and memory aids, you have that quick reference guide if you see that particular topic because you've done it so many times and you know where you're strong and weak at, you can quickly ascertain, okay, I've seen this problem, quick reference guide in my head. I remember this in my outline. I remember the story that I created to really hone in this concept and this topic. Let me go ahead and apply that exact same technique if I see this topic within the exam.
Did you find that transitioned well while you were taking the exam?
Absolutely. Again, I mentioned you're going into the exam, you're going to be anxious, right? But it's how you channel that. And so it's understanding like, hey, you've done the reps, you're ready to go, you put in the work. Doesn't guarantee your outcome, but you're well prepared to be proficient and dangerous when it comes to the exam day. And that's kind of where I had to get my mentality into it. It's kind of, again, a sports mentality.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Those are really good tips for studying, man. Those are really good tips. And I feel like, yeah, that's a lot of that is what I've done too, to make sure that I was successful when I passed. But I didn't have to work. You know, I actually had the family support of saying, go ahead and just study. I took like a whole year, just like taking my time, really interpreting and understanding it. So that way, when I walked into the exams, I felt very confident that I would pass. And I did all of them except for one that I had to take twice, but that's my story. Let's talk about your exam process. So which one did you take first? And did you have to take any more than once?
Well, I'll be frank. To get all 4 completed, it took me 10 attempts. I don't even recall exactly the order of when I took it. I just know that I was able to take it based off like the timing and the schedule. But with all that being said, I passed the last 3 in a row. So what that means is I was able to figure out and get back to the drawing board upon those failures and essentially failing forward. Like I knew what I had to go back and tweak and update in regards to my strategies and my tips and stuff like that, which ended up making me successful. So I was probably dragging, was upset for about 2 minutes, but I was like, okay, back to the drawing board.
I mean, it's when you put so much into it going in, and then to get a result that says you did make it, you know, there's that moment of, I really, you could take on that and be like, I'm done. I don't care about this anymore. And be frustrated. So I got to give my hats off to you for continuing, even if you've gone through it that many times and passing, because it takes a lot of will to do that. You know what I mean?
Correct. And I was close on many of them. I was always within that range. I was always almost there. So I knew I had to go back. I'll even reference like I grew up in the 90s, and so Michael Jordan, before he got his first championship, he had to get through the Pistons.
Yeah.
You know, he had to get through the Larry Birds.
Yeah.
You know, he had to get through Magic Johnson before he was crowned a champion. So I knew that upon those failures, like I got to go back. I got to go back in the off season. I got to make some changes. I got to make some updates. But the goal is still the goal, is to become a CPA.
Right. Okay. But which exams was it multiple? Like of the 4, did you have to take a couple of them more than once, or was it one specific one? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. But again, it got to the point where I knew what my pitfalls were, and I just knew what my weaknesses were, and I just really honed in on some of those weaknesses and just try to become more proficient in those particular topic areas.
Which one did you find to be the most challenging?
Oh my goodness.
If you can remember.
Well, I'll just say this for each exam, right? So for far from my opinion, is more transactional, right? There's a lot of topics that can be thrown at you, just really understanding, how everything flows, from transaction all the way to the financials. So, that's really great in that regard, in regards to like doing a lot of computations and doing a lot of those different transactions. Auditing, obviously you're auditing the financial statements, and there's a lot of assertions and things that go into it. So just with auditing, you just really have to read the material very, very carefully. And you get that by practicing and saying like, hey, paying attention to, how the question is worded, because that can really, for me, it tricked me out. So just understanding that, going back to the drawing board, Greg ended up being my highest score out of all of them. Taxes just resonated with me. It's black and white, not much gray.
Right.
So I was all for that. And then BC, just had a lot of different concepts in there, a lot of things related to like auditing and stuff like that. And the written communication, just having a quick reference guide to how to tackle some of these, these sims and multiple choice questions. But they all had their particular moments, but I'm just glad that I was successful in all four.
You got to do it. Good. I agree with what you're saying. I found FAR to be the most straightforward one for me because I just studied, and it's like you said, it's transactional. So if you know what you're doing, there's really only one answer to a lot of the questions.
That's correct.
But like you said, with audit, you really do need to read, because one of the things I remember when I took the exam was audit will give you answers that are good, but you've got to find the best answer. You got to find that one that actually makes the most sense. So it is very important to read and understand what audit is and the concepts that are in there.
I agree. I'll even add one tidbit too. Like I had with some of these exams, I just had to take a big picture, a holistic approach to them. And I'm like, at the end of the day, becoming a CPA, you're protecting the public's interest. And so sometimes you just have to put yourself in the examiner's shoes. Yeah. And then if you can do that, as you approach these questions, you're like, yeah, like you got to know this information. Like you're protecting the public's interest. So there's certain things you may like, oh, they're tricking me here, they're doing this. Like, no, you have to be able to ascertain, what's going on in front of you. Because again, in real life application, again, the goal is to protect the public's interest. So I took a big picture approach and realized, okay, this is not necessarily like gimmicks or anything like that. You just really have to understand the concepts and the topics.
That's really good though. That's actually really good advice. You kind of have to put some things in perspective, understand what role you will be feeling in real life, and it can help you to deduce the answer based on the study, right? The study process is very important because it's going to give you the knowledge, but once you can put it in perspective, it'll kind of help you to pull the right answers better. So I get it. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. I found reg to be, the hardest for me, and people I've interviewed have said the same. So you're saying reg was black and white and pretty straightforward for you. So that's a good thing. All right. So what are you doing right now in your career as a CPA?
Well, I'm currently doing public corporate accounting. I'm actually in the SEC reporting team. And so it's just a great overall experience working with a Fortune 500 company in the insurance and annuities industry, and just having an opportunity to collaborate with some really great leaders. And I've been very fortunate coming in with no prior experience, and essentially, them taking me in and really honing in on the internal training process. And I've been able to take things in stride. So working in that particular industry has been very fulfilling.
Good. And so how long has it been since the exam? You said 2019, right? So roughly a year. Have you been in this role for about a year now, you would say?
I've been in SEC reporting for about 2 years now. Yeah.
2 years?
So when I first started the role, when I first started the role, I was switching jobs. I already had passed one examination, so I still had 3 more to go when I took this new SEC reporting role. And they cheered me on. Again, I had support from them as well too. Like, hey, go get it. And just to have that support, and to being able to balance work life and family, they really emphasize that. And it's been very, very fortunate to be surrounded by some really great people there.
Good. So then I guess to anybody who's in your shoes right now, who's like on the front end of this thing, they're like, I know I want to do it, but I got to go through this entire process to get to where I want to be and be a CPA. What would you tell them to keep them motivated through the study process and through the exam process? Like, what's the benefits you've seen from going through all that and being on this side of the fence now?
I think just being proven, knowing that, you could set a hard goal and you can accomplish it. Because, life's going to throw a lot of different things at you. You just have to be able to pivot, make adjustments, and hurdle over some of those things. And so this is kind of like that fork in the road. It's going to be tough, but you're just going to have to stick it and gut it through. And you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it for? For me, I knew what my purpose was. I knew why I was doing it for. Because other people might be for opportunities, it might be for monetary reasons. For me, it was just being the top of the profession. That was ultimately my goal. And what stems from that, I'll hopefully be able to reap those benefits. But for me, I knew what my purpose was. So identify your purpose early on in the onset and stick to that purpose all the way through, because that'll be your key driver to completing the examination.
Very good. Very good. You know, I agree with that as well. It's really important because, you know, some of the topics when you're sitting there and you're reading through those books, it's, you know, it gets a little dry. You're just reading,
Right.
you're taking things in, and it takes a while for you to like process it. And I remember when I was going through the study process, I would think about my why. I would be like, you know what? I'm in transition from college. I want to be on my own. I don't want anybody supporting me. That was really my motivator, you know. I want to be able to go out and do things on my own. And I know that once I pass this exam, I will be much more qualified, especially because I came from an HBCU.
Okay.
And I was in an HBCU here in Florida, and then went to Atlanta. And when I was applying for jobs, they didn't know my school like that. You know, like if they knew the HBCU, it's the one that's in the area, you know.
Right.
But I wasn't getting much responses. And I was like, you know what? It's funny because my sister, I was living with my sister and I was there for a year. And then after that year came around and she knew I was studying and I had like a couple exams under, she was like, you think you want to get a, you know, like a job just until this thing is over? I was like, no. Wait till I'm done. And I promise. And I mean, when I took the last part, the following week, I got calls from PwC, EY, they flew me down and I was out of there like that, you know? And that's just the beauty of having just the exam pass. It wasn't even me having a license. It was on the resume, CPA exam, passed all 4 parts. It was like, all right, come on, where can you be, you know? So that was kind of, that was kind of the thing. But remember your why, because your why will keep you going through it. I think that's great advice, man. So I'm going to wrap up soon with this, but there's one thing I want to touch on before we do this.
Okay.
You and I are a rare breed in this profession of accounting because we represent a smaller portion of the overall ethnic population groups, right, that are in accounting, right? I'm not sure your full background, but you know, I'm an African American, Black American. Are you from, you know, heritage wise, islands?
I'm Haitian American. Parents were immigrants, came down here, so they really preached on education. I didn't quite understand it while I was young, but it was always that little birdie that was chirping in the back of the head. I was going through my courses in college, and you know, you tend to get a little bit older, and you realize like, all that stuff they were saying, I get it now. I get it now. So it took a little bit longer to, you know, to pick these things up, but now I understand again the why behind that. But yes.
Yeah. So, and you know, I'm seeing a lot of the awareness change in the community of accounting, saying we need to have more Black CPAs. We need to have more ethnic diversity with people who have the CPA license, right? And the change is coming, you know. And I just want to hats off to you for being somebody who increased that number. You know, one by one, we're gonna do this thing. Correct. And I'm sure, you know, it's gonna continue to be worth it. All those study hours, going through the exam that many times, is gonna be worth it for you, because it's been worth it for me so far and everybody else that I've talked about. So congratulations again, man.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing your story and helping to inspire and motivate someone else who's going through this journey, because together we are gonna get more people to see the value, get the license, and change their lives, man.
Absolutely, 100%. I actually have a follow-up question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. What's up?
So how do we get more, you know, African Americans into the accounting profession? What do you think are some of the things that are kind of holding us back from like even considering the accounting profession as a whole?
So, you know, it's interesting you asked that question, because I've had the opportunity of interviewing some really smart people who have an understanding of what needs to be done. I think a lot of it with me is learning, because I've always had this perception of what I thought it was, and then talking to people there are a lot of people who are out in the community of accountants that are doing things, right, that are on the front line of this thing. And it comes down to a lot of different things. And that's why I am doing CPA diversity and trying to find and bring more awareness, because it's really going to take a collective community effort to do this.
Okay.
You know, that's the biggest thing. It's not any one thing that's going to help bring more. I think we just have to start giving. There's a lot of good things. So here's one thing that I just heard this week. We've got to start showing the benefits of what it is really. Like, you get this perception. Some people say, oh, accountants just start counting numbers, right? But if you start to give out that view of, wait a minute, you know, if you have audit, you get to travel, you get to meet people, you get to talk to executives, you get to work directly with, you know, the leaders of the company. You start to give that perception, it starts to increase more interest in going into the profession, right? Then the other things that we need to think about are pipeline, right? Because it's not just, oh, you can just, I want to be a CPA exam and take the license and take the exam and you're a CPA. You gotta go through college and get those course credits to qualify. You got to study, you got to go and pass the exam. And there's a lot of things that go into that, right? Like the cost associated with it, the time associated with it. So working on how do we make more Black and brown candidates kind of seamlessly go through that pipeline process as well. And then just, you know, providing more education around it, which is what we're doing with this platform. So, you know, some of the things that we could be doing, we've got new organizations out there now that are the new organization. We got existing organizations that are doing things, and it's really going to be a collective effort. You know, but I see the tide changing. We've gotten to a point where we're like, look, the numbers have been this kind of stagnant for too long. We need to start doing something. We need to start working together. So that's the response so far that I have now. And I'm sure it's going to continue to build and change as I continue to talk to people. So, you know, I'll put some videos out, and if you want, you know, I'll give you the update, I guess outside of this call too. But yeah, that's really the response to it so far right now, man.
No, that's great. What a great perspective. And for me, like some of my takeaways is kind of, again, just being fresh out of college, and you know, I got my MBA in 2017, passed the CPA examination in 2019. With accounting, first going into it, there's a lot of day-to-day stuff. But as I go through my career, and maybe your next guest can probably, you know, pick up on this topic a little bit. But like, I think we just have to show more creativity in accounting. You know, I heard the term before. There's no such thing as creative accountants. But I'm starting to see that different with technology emerging. Like, you can be very creative in regards to developing workflows, process improvements, developing the month-end process. And so obviously there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that are involved in it, but there is an opportunity to be very, very, very creative.
Yeah, I mean, technology is changing the way we do accounting, that's for sure. And that's why they're also changing the CPA exam, because it's going to incorporate technology. It's a necessary element to what we do now, and, you know, on every side of the fence, you know. So I agree, you know, the term, you know, don't get creative with gap. That's not
exactly.
But you can get creative in how you implement gap, you know?
Right. Thanks for that little disclaimer right there.
But yeah, man, yeah, for sure. You know what I want to do? I'm going to do some more interesting things with the platform and getting people involved. But yeah, you know, if I had to tell you to do anything too, for a career perspective, always keep studying, man. The study process never ends after the CPA exam. Do you still have your study materials?
I do. I have my outlines.
Good. I'm just wondering, because some people get rid of them. They're like, I'm done. I don't want it anymore. No, Good. I'm not to say that you have to go back to those things though, which you know, I don't think because I haven't had to really go back to my study material, but you always want to be studying, you know, in your profession, whatever it is you do, you know, study, learn, and take that into the workplace every day, because it's going to make you a better professional. And then, you know, like Naba says, we got to lift as we climb. So whatever, I'm sure you're already doing some things, but, you know, figure out the way that you can contribute now and inspire somebody else to go and just like us, go and, you know, consider this career path. And you're doing that by participating in this interview for one, and then if you do anything else outside of that and you want to talk about it, this is the platform for you to do that. I invite you to come. So, and I enjoyed this conversation, man. Thank you, Patrick.
Likewise, no, likewise. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm excited for what's to come. Continue the great work. I've seen the rest of your YouTube videos, and I'm just super thrilled that you're exercising this and you're putting this out there for people to acknowledge. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Okay.